Okay, so let's dig into step 4. So for step 4, we're going to look at the artistic proofs. So ethos, logos, and pathos. So are they present or not? And so we're really looking at what's the message, how's it being said, what images are being used, are they significant images, does the text tell one long story, many stories, fragmented stories, and like why does it matter? So specifically, I'm asking you in this step, if you don't have a clue, I mean, I know so many of you have done this in your English classes, or even maybe in public speaking when you started to do your own persuasive speeches. So if you already have a good, strong handle on what ethos, pathos, and logos are, then we can just take a look at what it means to President Bush's speech. If you're a little unsure, watch this short video, this little TED Talk here. It's about 5 minutes. It'll give you a clearer understanding of what we're looking for. So after that, I've asked, can you identify the artistic proofs present in President Bush's speech? And so let's look at ethos first. And so ethos is credibility. And so if we were to look to President Bush, who stands in as representing the office of the President of the United States, thereby just holding that office, you hold some credibility in the minds of your audience. He's the leader of the United States. So just by the nature of his position, he already has the authority to give us this important message. So consider it this way: if it wasn't President Bush, but your neighbor giving this address, it has a totally different meaning, right? So what other things can we look at that establish that ethos? So I'm hoping as I scroll up here, it's got a framed look at the video. I'm going to press play here because I want to see what it looks like as we go. Yes, okay, I'm going to hold that still shot there, hopefully, with my little spinny wheel going. Thanks very much for that, computer. Let's take a look at this frame. So President Bush in the center. I mean, he's just right in the middle. You're not going to look anywhere else. He's wearing the standard uniform for a president. He's got his blue tie on. He's got his hands folded right in front of us. He's not waving them around like I am. He's saying this is a carefully thought out moment. Take a deep breath here and listen, because what I'm about to say, just the way that I'm saying it, is important. Framed here is the presidential seal, as well as the flag of the United States of America. This, of course, is the Oval Office, which also adds some credibility to what he's about to say. And then these pictures of his family. Also, even something as little as these little portfolios here on the desk. Now, for my comm students who are doing media studies, you know that when you're framing a shot, every single thing within that shot is very important. You're using it to tell a story. The same thing with these portfolios. They're there intentionally. President Bush, the office of the President of the United States, wants you to know he is not sleeping, he is not eating, he's not doing anything, he is working. And so that's what that conveys here. So ethos is strongly established within this speech. The next one, pathos, the use of emotion. So President Bush does use emotion to help strengthen his message throughout this speech. There's vivid imagery and language that's used to evoke the emotion. In our last step, we talked about, I'm just going to roll up here instead of going back over to the transcript, but deliberate, deadly attacks. That's charged language. That's not like, hey, cute little, which is also charged language, but we're talking about something, we're evoking strong emotions. We want you to know that these victims are the people who live next door to you. They're people you care about. They could be your family members. That use of, how is this emotionally tied to me? Well, they did a strong job of writing this speech that is directly related to you, the audience. Mass murder, failed evil, the very worst of human nature. But on the other side of that too, terrible sadness, strong, great nation, the brightest beacon of freedom. Dun, 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 you just want to raise a flag to that imagery. And then also logos. Does it make sense? Is the speech organized in such a way that you follow it? So, I mean, absolutely. I don't think you're, reading it or watching it going, I wonder what he's talking about right now. Wish he would just get to the point. Every word that's used is quite deliberate, and it starts laid out in a way that defines the situation. So we now have an understanding. Now, you know, so many of you weren't alive at this point, or if you were, very, very young children who have limited memory of this, this event. But as somebody who was living in Boston at the time, I can tell you that as just a general person, I was actually I was someone who just recently graduated from college, so I was closer to your age, which, don't start calculating my age or anything right now, people. But, my then boyfriend, now husband, he's now my husband. Okay, that person that I live with. We both watched the television until very late that night, and we were tied to it because we wanted to know what was going on. Certainly, there were whispers of these were terrorist attacks, but no one truly knew that until this speech. So it hadn't been defined as terrorism until this speech. So there were, newscasters and people making assertions, but until President Bush defined it as terrorism, that was when the moment and the American public knew that it was terrorism, if that makes sense. So there was speculation prior, but until it had been defined by someone with the credibility of the President of the United States, no one truly knew. And so that's really the essence of what happened here within this rhetorical text. Okay. I'm going to stop now, and we're going to connect again in step 5.